Hi there, and welcome to Embroidery. This is going to be a very basic video on the very beginnings of embroidery. Some people have joined some of my online Facebook groups, and I've only been embroidering a short while, but when people come on and go, I don't even know how to do a hoop, it amazes me that there isn't enough information out there on how to actually handle a hoop. So what I've done is I've got two hoops here, both the same. And the only difference between these two hoops, I'm hoping you're going to be able to see it on the camera, is one has a Phillips cross in, so you can put a screwdriver into it, and the other one is completely flat. Both have a screw to hold the pin in place, but what you are after are the ones with the Phillips cross in, so that you can really get a screwdriver in there and tighten this hoop up to keep your fabric in place. Ones without, you have to manually twist, and you can't get those as tight as the ones with the screwdriver hole. So the ones without aren't really any good. So try to avoid those like the plague. So when you get your hoop, you hold the bolt, unscrew with your hands. You don't need a screwdriver for that part. You don't need to take it all the way out. They come apart once it's loose. And what I do is I cut a piece of fabric that's going to cover more than enough size of the hoop. So you can see the hoop through there. You've got at least 1 inch to 1.5 inches or more around the edges, just so that you know you're going to get that hoop on there and that you're going to have spare fabric sticking out that you can pull. Fabrics that I use are 100% cotton. There's no stretch, there's no give to the fabric. What you want to do is avoid fabric with stretchiness in them. Iron them so that they're nice, flat and smooth. I cut mine first. It doesn't matter if they're all creased. I cut mine first, iron all the pieces flat. Cut your fabric with pinking scissors. Pinking scissors have the zigzaggy edge. This gives it the zigzaggy edge on the fabric. Don't know if you can see that. Yeah. And this stops the fabric from fraying. If you cut it with straight scissors, strands of fabric are going to start coming undone, and it gets very messy, and it doesn't stop. The strands will just keep coming off till there's nothing left. But if you use pinking scissors, it stops the fabric shredding, keeps everything neat, and it keeps your fabric in one piece. I also use, you don't have to use this. Some people will get 2 sheets of cotton and put that into a hoop, but I buy this backing material, fabric backing. Now, one side is dull, like paper. It's like a paper, but it's a bit tougher than paper. One side is dull. The other side is shiny. I don't know if you can see that on the video, but there's a shine to one side, and it's the shiny side that you place onto the fabric, and then you place an iron on top in the middle like that when it's fully hot, and you leave it. Don't get your iron and start doing this, because it will make the fabric move, it'll make the paper move, and then you're going to end up with creases. You place your iron on flat and leave it, obviously not to burn it, and then you move to the edge and then leave it and then leave it until you think, oh, it's going to burn, and then you move it back to the other side, and just leaving it in place will stick the backing to your fabric. Once you know it's all stuck, then you can go over with your iron, and I also turn it over. Then if there are any creases or bumps in your fabric, iron the fabric side down onto the backing, and usually that gets rid of any wrinkles or bumps you might have. I've not encountered any wrinkles and bumps that I've not been able to get rid of, so hopefully you won't either. So once you've done that, if you choose to do that, you could just double up your fabric. You'll have a piece of fabric. This one's already got the backing stuck on. This is the side with the backing. This is the side with the backing underneath. I've already drawn very, very faintly a heart design. I'll turn it around just in case it's an upside down video. But you can see the hearts. I trace on very, very finely before I put the backing on. And what I do is I get my design, get my fabric without the backing, and place it on top. And as you can see straight through it. This is without a tracing table, without a tablet or a light box underneath. I've drawn a design onto a piece of paper and with a uni pen, a thick uni pen of about a number 8. A number 8 uni pen will do it. So let's get that on there. Use that. Let's try it that way. I'm just waiting for the camera to. That's an uni pen, or a micron. Microns are my favourite. This is a micron size 005, and this is a micron size 1. But the design drawn on this one has been used with the Unipen or Unipen, and that's a 0.03. Can't really see the focus there, but that's a size 0.03. Very, very small nibs. You can hardly see the nib. This is even smaller on the 005. I mean, that is so small, I can't even see it with my glasses on. That has a really, really invisible tip right on the very end. That is teeny, teeny, tiny. Anyway, there are plenty of other pens that you can use that disappear, the disappearing pens where you draw your pattern on, but they leave a very, very thick line and can bleed into the fabric and make people panic, and they think, oh, that's not going to come off, but it does come off. With washing it, I don't wash any of my work because all my work stays in hoops. It's not on clothing. If you are going to be stitching onto clothing, you've got to make sure that the thread that you use is colour fast. DMC and Anchor are colour fast threads, so you can use them on clothing and wash them, but wash the fabric first if it's not been washed. Stitch on it, then wash it again after, and everything should be fine. These are cheap threads that you buy on Amazon or from cheap markets or eBay. I don't even know what the brand this is. This doesn't even have a brand on the label. It's that cheap. You can buy these in bags of 170 different colours. As you can see next to each other, one is more well presented than the other, and the actual thread has a better quality than the other. Both do exactly the same job, but I'd say DMC and Anchor threads are easier to work with. They cause less knots, they run more smoothly, they're easier to separate, whereas cheaper threads can be more knotty, more difficult to handle if you're not good at embroidery to begin with. But so trace your design, then iron on your backing onto the back. So you have your fabric with your design ready to go in the hoop. So what you do with the hoop is you take the inner ring, place it on the table, and place your design over the top with the edge of the backing fabric on the back on the hoop. But it's overlaying the very, very edge of the hoop. If your hoop is going to be a display piece, then you're going to want the screw top to go at the top of your design. If it's not going to be a display piece and you're going to take it out and put it on a pillowcase or use it for something else, then it doesn't really matter where the screws go. But I like to make my pieces to stay in the hoop. I do art in the hoop. Place it on top as level to the ring underneath as you can. This is where when you start putting pressure, the hoop underneath is going to start moving about. But if you do it slowly and carefully enough, it will just pop over the top. It just needs gentle pushing and tugging. No fighting with it. And it will slide on. But this is not tight. Okay, this is still loose fabric. So what you do, I squeeze the hoop together slightly just to keep it all in place and start to turn the screw. Finger on the bolt because it's going to turn. So manually tighten your hoop to begin with. And when you can't twist it no more or it's showing resistance, I put the design flat down. So you've got the hoop in front of you. I put my hand on the hoop, fingers on the hoop, and I grab the fabric with my thumb underneath and gently pull whilst pushing my fingers on the hoop, the inner hoop. Move it round, gently pull. You're not getting it perfect just yet. You're just getting it ready to be where you want it to be. So you put your fingers on the hoop, grab the fabric and give a gentle pull. It's all gentle pulling for now. Push the hoop in place to make sure it's not come out. There's a bit of a bump here. This can make a bit of a bump on the outside and we want to get rid of that. So the way to get rid of that bump of fabric just there is to just gently pull away. Pull the fabric in opposite directions away from each other. And you see that kind of makes it disappear. So you're pulling it away from each other. And it's still a tiny bump, but that will go as you tighten. So now you're at the point of it's a bit tighter, but it can be tighter still. This is the point where you've got to get your screwdriver, which I have here. So hold your bolt and tighten your screwdriver. And you can go really, really tight. Don't be scared to go really, really tight. Go as tight as it will let you go. And again, put it down. And I pull. 2 hands this time. Fingers on the inner ring. Thumbs on the fabric on the other side. And pull as you push the hoop down. Pull and push the hoop. Pull and push the hoop all the way around. Until you get back to the top where you started. And there we have it. That is now tight as a drum. And that's where you want it to be. You want it to be as tight as possible. Now, as you work on your projects or practice, the fabric will loosen. Some people, I don't, but some people put double-sided sticky tape on the inside of their inner hoop to cause more friction. Some people wrap their inner hoops with fabric strips to give it more tension. I've never struggled with keeping the tension because all I do is I'll work on it, and when I've stopped for the day or stopped to have a break, I'll just do the push the hoop and pull, push the hoop and pull all the way around, and it retightens up nicely. I've never had to retighten the screw. That doesn't come undone as you work. It's just the fabric does get pushed and pulled, and all you have to do is pull it from the edges and it will stay nice and tight. Needles. There are all different kinds of needles you can use. You can get tapestry needles, which are the big ones, big, thick, chunky needles. Now, some of them, I don't even know if this is going to be seen on the camera, but one of these needles has a more pointy end than the other. So this one is more rounded, this one is slightly more pointy, so that's going to go through the fabric easier. The rounded end ones that you can't prick your finger on, I can hit that pretty hard and it's not going to prick my finger. They're not ideal for embroidery because you're going through fabric. They're good for cross stitch because you've already got a hole to go through, but not good for fabric. You need a tapestry needle that is more pointy on the end, that is going to go through fabric. These ones are a bit smaller. I'll show you compared to each other. I don't know if you can see that. So let's go this way. There we go. That's the embroidery needle I just showed you with a more of a pointy end. This is another one, but it's much thinner and it's even pointier. That's sharp. That's going to make your fingers bleed if you get it through. But the eye of the needle is much, much smaller. This will be perfect for 6 threads. All 6 threads will go through that one, but you're going to struggle getting all 6 threads to go through that one. This would be better for 4 or 3 threads. And then you can go even smaller. This is where I've got to get my kit out. This is my little needle holder. So it's just a piece of cardboard with some fabric over the top and some felt on the inside as like pages. And in here, I've got even finer needles, like a hair, and this one's even thinner. So if I put all of them together, going from thickest to thinnest, there we go, and this way. So there's the thickest one, perfect for 6 strands, 4 strands, and 3 strands. These two are going to be, you can't even hardly see this one. These two are going to be for 1 or 2 strands at the most. You don't want to go for bigger, for 1 or 2 strands, because the hole that you make when you go through the fabric, it's just going to pull the thread through all the way through without stopping, even with a knot. So depending on what kind of work, when you're a beginner and you're practicing, go for the bigger needles, because you just need to get the feel of the fabric, the feel of working with a needle. I've got to put my fine needles back in here, otherwise I lose them. Another thing that I recommend that you invest in is a needle minder. A lot of people, even people who embroider regularly, don't realise that needle minders exist. I'm just going to grab mine. It is a magnet in 2 pieces. You've got a back, this is the back, and this is the front, and they clip together. Oops. And they're very magnetic. It just pinged out and went straight to my needles. I had mine off Amazon. What you do is you put your front on the front of your work and the back on the back, and it keeps it in place. It's magnetized together through the fabric, and that holds your needle. So if you're working and then suddenly you've got to drop everything and rush off, it's going to keep your needle where you want to find it, really. Stops them dropping on the floor. Okay, so another handy gadget to have is a needle threader. You see these in needle kits. They can come with most needle kits. If you struggle getting your thread through a needle, what you do is you get some thread. I'm just going to use one that I've already got. So I'm going to try and get 6 pieces through that. You put your needle threader It's not a very good camera shot, but you put your needle threader through the eye of the needle. Then you get your thread and put your thread. See, it's so fine you can't hardly see it. You put your thread through the needle minder, like that. And then you just pull the needle minder through the eye of the needle, and it takes your thread through for you. So very handy to have if you're not very good at threading any amount of threads. Just putting my needles away. Okay, so next is these, what I've got this on. Thread holders. You put your thread in the gap, and then you just wind it round until you've run out of thread, basically. So there's the plastic ones, or if you want to be more environmentally friendly, people use pegs. Peg your thread on and then just wrap your thread around. So if you don't know how to store your thread, grab a peg and just wrap it round. Another handy gadget, little clippers. There you go, little clippers. Just handy for snipping off bits of thread. You can just use embroidery scissors as well for that. It's completely up to you. What else is there to say? Splitting threads, or how much thread to use. Now, I usually unwind enough thread that goes from my wrist to my elbow. And if you're feeling more confident, you can go a little bit longer than that. So I'm just going to do this a little bit. Now, every thread comes as 6 threads. I would say to practice stitches, if you want to make a practice stitched piece, something similar, something like this. This is a practice piece that I do at my embroidery club for beginners. To be able to see the detail of what stitch you're using, it's better to use 6 threads. So this has all been done using the whole 6 threads of a strand of embroidery thread. But if you want to split your threads, I usually get my needle, put my needle just anywhere into the thread to separate it, run it up so it separates, and it could separate 1, 2, 3. I'm going to separate this one into 3s. So I've got 2 at the moment, not 3. So I need another thread to join in. There we go. That's now in half. Okay. So you've got it in on the end. It's now split into 2 sets of strands of 3. All you do is very, very gently and slowly pull them apart. Let's get that where you can see it. And you might come across a knot. Just gently, 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 slowly, slowly, slowly. It should undo itself. Right to the end. There we go. And it will spin. Oh, and they've spun together. They spin. Just gently pull them straight, because they're all curled up, and then you'll have your nice threads. If you are pulling and it comes to a complete knotted halt, what I do is I put the very bottom of the thread into my mouth, and I still continue to pull, because you pulling with your mouth at the bottom and still pulling your thread, it'll all pull it straight and it should all come apart. But if you find that you've come to a knot and it's just not working, then just start again with a new thread, because if you make a knot with this stuff, more than likely you're not going to be able to undo it all. So that is the very basics of beginning with embroidery. I know that's a lot, and this is a 25-minute video, but that is the basics. I'm going to be doing more videos soon on actual stitches and different ways of stitching. So I look forward to seeing you then.